Hello and welcome to the My Dietitian Journey podcast. My name is Adam, your co-host and producer. With me, of course, Felicia Peraza of Peraza Nutrition and My Dietitian Journey. With us this time is Kristina, the intern. I don't know your last name. I don't want to dox you, though. We didn't agree. There was no contract or anything. You know?
Yes.
We can't discuss her full identity. But Kristina's here with us as an intern, and I guess we'll just jump right into topics of discussion. We're going to go into the internship process again. It's a little different with Kristina. We had Sophie on before. Kristina's got a different program, different perspective. So we're going to go through some things. Do you want to just brief introduction?
Yeah. My name's Kristina. I go to the University of Alabama. I'm going into my last semester. I graduate in December. I'm from New Jersey. And I've been interning with Felicia for the past, 3 weeks?
3 weeks.
Yeah. And it's been great.
So you're with University of Alabama. You're from Jersey. Is it a distance program or are you there?
No, I go.
Oh.
I'm just home for the summer. Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah.
So how true is like the whole Roll Tide thing?
Oh,
that
Roll
attitude?
Tide, baby.
All right.
Roll Tide.
Enough said. Okay.
Live, breathe, Roll Tide.
Do you know what that means?
I've heard so many people say it, and I don't really know. So.
College football.
Okay.
Yes, it's a big deal. Yeah.
All right. So first things first, what made you decide to go into dietetics?
So I would say I was very unsure of what I wanted to do. When I graduated high school in 2018, I did not know what I wanted to do at all. I always knew that I was interested in working in healthcare, but I always thought maybe the classes would be too hard. Like I would just be miserable and be so busy with school. But then, I was like, if that's the one thing I want to do, I might as well just do it and push through. So at first I wanted to do nursing, and I switched my major to nursing. And, I just wanted more variety in my career. I wanted to have more options. So for nursing, a class requirement was Intro to Nutrition. And I took it and I really, really liked it. And I was just attracted to the diversity in the nutrition field. I genuinely enjoyed the class and I was just interested in it.
That's super cool. It's funny because I applied in college to go for nursing or nutrition. Mm-hmm. So I was actually split between the two. I just also wanted to kind of work in healthcare. And then I was like, I'll just go for nutrition. Took my first nutrition class and just really loved it. And so it's just interesting. But it's funny because I also teach the nutrition class with nursing students. So you were conversion from nursing to nutrition. So
I'm sure it happens here and there.
Yeah.
And then I didn't have anything like that where I knew what I wanted to do. I changed my major like 5 or 6 times. You changed your major as well.
Yes.
Can you describe that process?
It was hard to make that decision just because I didn't want to not graduate on time. Falling behind and not graduating with my friends was kind of a barrier. But at the same time, I was like, well, I want to actually like what I'm doing. So I was like, it's worth it. And I kind of felt like at the time when I did switch my major that I was upset that I kind of wasted my time and money taking classes that I didn't need. But I realized it was worth it now.
Yeah, don't lock yourself into a career you hate.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be really miserable.
Yeah,
and why would you want to do that?
Exactly.
I mean, a lot of people, make that mistake.
Yeah, I didn't want that.
It's an easy trap to fall into. So where are you now in terms of college? Where are you at?
So I'm going to be a 5th year technically, but it's my last semester. I'm going back in August, finishing in December, but I'll still be completing all my rotations once I'm graduated from undergrad technically. So I just have a few more undergrad classes, my rotations, and then I'll be done.
So we're gonna go into the uniqueness of our program, right? Because that's pretty weird that because you're doing the internship and you're still in your undergrad. Yeah. That's the unique part of your. I've never heard of that, but we'll get into it. So, what's been the hardest part of your undergrad so far?
Just in general, I feel like nutrition classes are a lot harder than people think they are. I think you'd agree with that, right?
Yes.
Biochem and stuff like that is hard and it requires a lot of time and effort and studying. So I would just say maybe time management and, staying on top of all my classes at once. Yeah.
Yeah, the sciences were definitely the hardest part for me, especially
chemistry.
And some of that stuff, unless you're going into research, you don't really use it much.
You just got to push through.
I feel like everyone hates chemistry except for maybe
It's
like
hard.
chemistry majors.
Yeah.
Probably.
I guess. I don't know. You have to be a unique kind of person. Like I took Chem 1 and it was pretty brutal.
Oh yeah, it was rough. It was rough.
I don't want to think about organic chem. Gives me nightmares.
Yeah.
What kind of work or volunteer experience do you have so far?
So in college, I've done quite a few extracurriculars. The main thing that I did was in my sorority, I had a leadership position. I think it really helped me improve my public speaking skills, which is great. I feel like that's important, and communication for sure. And I also volunteered at an after-school program in Alabama with elementary school. So I would go and help and tutor the kids. I love kids. I love working with kids. So doing that definitely was great for me. And I also am part of the Student Dietetic Association at Alabama. So they look at that, especially when you apply to my program, your involvement in that. And yeah.
Yeah, the Student Dietetic Association, if there's a nutrition major at the college or the university that you're at, definitely something you want to get involved in. Even if you're just a student member, leadership position is obviously really great, but just being a student member, being actively involved, keeping log of what kinds of things, like activities that you do with the organization, really can definitely help.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. Volunteer work is always important to be on a resume, especially any kind of, so do you have any kind of desire to work with kids?
I would love to work with kids. I know that, out of college, I might not just be able to go work at a children's hospital or something, but maybe in the future, I would love to do that. I love kids and working with them. So
is that the route you want to go, clinical, ultimately?
As of now, I haven't done my community rotation yet, and I did my clinical, and I really, really liked it. So that's kind of where my mind is right now, but that could completely change. I'm very open to other fields in nutrition.
Just curious, because that seems to be, it's almost, I don't know if it's fair to say it's a cliche, but clinical is like the route. And I always wonder if people want to go clinical versus if they feel pressured to go clinical.
I think I really liked learning about different diseases and like medical nutrition therapy for different diseases. I thought that was really, really interesting, and I actually enjoyed it. So maybe that'll change. Maybe I'll like something different, but as of now.
Yeah. It's the point of college, right?
Yeah.
Figure it out, try things. The internship exposes you to a lot. So there are, a variety of types of internship. This is my ultra smooth segue into our next topic. It's totally not pre-planned. Can you explain the internship program you're in currently?
Yeah, so I am in the coordinated program of dietetics at Alabama. Basically, it is a program that allows undergrads to start their dietetic internships early, not because most dietetic internships they start after you graduate. So I am actually still in college doing this program, which is great. It speeds up the process. I applied in the fall of my junior year, which is the standard.
So the program, are you only doing internship rotations during the summer, or do you squeeze it in during the year?
So they're during the year, and I had one in May, just for the month of May, and then this one is in the summer. So, and that'll be it for in the summer. Other than that, they'll all be during the school year.
So you're taking classes full time.
Yeah.
And then after class, you're going to or you mix it in? Is it
It's
online?
kind of split up. So how it was for clinical, I had class Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and clinical I had Tuesday, Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes more sense.
Yeah.
Man, that's really handy to be able to mix that in.
It is. So
it's great. Yeah.
The style, and actually if you search on the Academy website, Eat Right Pro, you could find different dietetic internships. And so the coordinated program is one of the ones that you would see on there. So it has, again, that didactic instruction, so the undergrad component, but then also that supervised practice to meet the competencies. So a lot of benefit to that kind of style. I don't know if we have this as a question, but were you also taking master's program classes too?
So I'm also in Alabama's accelerated master's program. I'm not sure if it's a thing at other schools, but I applied at the same time I applied for the coordinated program actually. And it allows me to take my undergrad classes at a graduate level. So it counts towards both degrees.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Because technically, I guess you'd be grandfathered into the whatever, is it 23 or 24 where if you get your bachelor's you can still get but you're just going to knock out the master's anyway.
Yeah,
that's good. That's smart. Getting ahead of the game. Man, that's a really unique program. The only other thing, not that I'm a college connoisseur, but Drexel University has like a a 5-year where you do a co-op.
Yeah.
You get
I
experience.
think other schools have stuff like that. I don't know about for nutrition, but
Yeah, I've never heard
yeah.
of it. Not that
Yeah,
I would
it's
know,
great.
but it's really nice that exists.
yeah, it's great.
So
They're getting more popular now with the combined programs, like the coordinated plus
Yeah.
the master's component, because of the
requirement,
the
yeah.
requirement for that. And then also, if you're at that school applying for the internship, you have a little bit more of an in to
Yeah.
get in. So that's just another benefit too of being there.
because the barrier is already high enough to become an RD to begin with.
Oh yeah.
So just working
it
this
makes
in,
it a lot easier, a lot less stressful.
That's good.
Yeah.
I feel like it should just be part of it, regardless.
Yeah.
Always for every program.
I agree.
So, what's unique about the program? Any benefits you've found to the style of program? I think we talked about it a little bit.
Like I said, how it just kind of speeds up the process, makes it a little less stressful. Not having to worry about applying for a dietetic internship after I graduate is really nice. Took a weight off my shoulders when I got into the program. Also, with the group that I'm in, there's 15 of us. We're all super close because we see each other literally every day in class. So it's nice to like be able to have people to like talk about rotations with and do work with, study with. So that's great. I have made some of my closest friends at Alabama through this program. And also just being able to gain classroom knowledge and hands-on experience at the same time, I think is really great and helps me learn.
That's super valuable too, to kind of have your little cohort.
Yeah.
And such a small group too, 'cause
Yeah.
with my undergrad, you have people you're close with, but then everyone kind of goes in different directions.
Yeah.
And then I did a distance program. So I think there was like 30 or 40 different interns. There's quite a few of us, but we were all over the place. So having people that you're
Yeah.
seeing consistently too probably builds a much stronger relationship.
Yeah, it's great. It's really great.
And you're building a network of other dietitians too while you're at it.
Yeah, and
These are
everyone's
people.
from everywhere. Like Alabama's half out of state, half in state.
Really?
So I have friends from all over the country. So if I ever want to move randomly to California, I know people. So
Yeah, I'm sure you know
Yeah.
people all over.
Yeah.
Seattle, Texas,
Yeah,
wherever.
yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Man, Alabama. I have questions about that. Maybe save it for later.
we'll chat.
So, how is your internship structured? Are you traveling or doing any virtual rotations?
So all my rotations are in person, except for this one's been hybrid. But all my rotations are based in 2 cities. So Tuscaloosa, which is where Alabama is. So there's hospitals in Tuscaloosa that we get rotations at. And then also Birmingham, Alabama, which is about an hour away. It's like the closest big city. And they split up our rotations in between those 2 places. So not all of us are driving to Birmingham all the time. So half of our rotations will be in Birmingham, half of our rotations will be in Tuscaloosa.
And then are you any virtual, or is it
Just
all?
this one. It's all been in person. Yeah.
Okay. I guess you would consider this virtual, even though you're
hybrid.
part of it. Hybrid.
Yeah, I just called it hybrid. I mean, the kind of what it is, where
Yeah.
it's partially in person, partially virtual, but a lot of the competencies can be met virtually.
Yeah.
And this kind of stuff, is good to do in person.
So you're just sort of here out of coincidence because you're home for the summer. You live in Jersey.
Yeah.
It's close enough to travel to.
It's only like 40 minutes away.
Yeah.
So
And you arranged this through your school because it's did you reach out to her directly?
I reached out to her. Yeah. I found her on the Academy directory.
Yeah, so the Academy has a Find a Preceptor database that you could sign up for. And so I'm listed on there along with many other dietitians, but it has like a bio of them and links and then a way to contact. So that's actually a lot of where I'll find my interns from or that reach out to me as they find me through that database.
So is this your elective rotation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it's 2 clinical, 2 food. The community is the one you're doing next?
Yeah, that's next semester.
Do you know where you're going?
I'm doing it at the Jefferson County Department of Health in Birmingham, Alabama. Oh. So I don't really actually know what I'm going to be doing there yet, but
We shall find out.
Yeah, I'll find out soon.
And then which ones have you done so far?
I've done 1 clinical, 1 food service, and then this one. So I've only done 3 so far.
Okay. So you don't know what's going on for the other ones. I guess they don't talk to you about that stuff in advance.
So I'm doing 3 next semester: community, my 2nd clinical, and my 2nd food service. So that'll all be in the fall semester.
I'm curious about what you're going to do for research, your research.
I
rotation.
honestly, that's my last semester. I don't really know.
Did you have one?
I didn't have a research one, but they also had just built in having to do a research component but it was more so on like a presentation. It wasn't like
I'm not really
lab
sure
research.
about that one, but we'll see, I guess.
Yeah, it just makes me wonder if you're going to be in like a food lab or something.
I think maybe Alabama has a food lab.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Lab coated up with like the goggles and stuff.
Yeah, that'd be awesome, actually. I'm curious now.
I have no idea what they do, but it's cool. I used to work for a company, Sodexo, that had food labs, and that's
actually so cool.
It would be cool to do that sort of thing. But did you need to locate any of your preceptors for your rotations?
So no, actually the only preceptor I had to locate was Felicia. All the other ones, the program assigns us. Yeah, it makes it super easy. So
man, that's so convenient.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. A lot of the on-site ones, they do that. They'll set up your rotations for you, with the exception of maybe like an elective, or there's like sometimes an enrichment rotation where like you have to find a preceptor. Usually it's for a shorter time frame, but the competencies can be a little bit more flexible. With distance programs, which is the one that I did, you had to set up all of your rotations. So everything from clinical to food service to community, which can make it really difficult to find that because programs like yours don't have contracts and relationships with different hospitals and systems that they agree to just take interns. So definitely makes it a lot easier.
I remember you having to hunt down stuff and some of the things coming down to the wire, and it was stressful. It's like, it's so nice to have that just built into your program. That's crazy. That's great.
Yeah, it is.
I hope they keep developing stuff like that.
Yeah, they really should make it. I feel like it should be more of a normal thing to be in a coordinated program.
I want to say, like, it's just weird how dietetics are set up that way to where, like, it becomes this, it's like a fight to get your degree.
It is. And then you can't really do much until you get the internship, and then you do, like, so you're kind of like stuck. I mean, you can get the bachelor's, and, you know, a lot of times people will work at something like a WIC, but, you know, it's hard to really get a dietetics related position that's more career-based that you might be looking for with having only the bachelor's.
Yeah, it's a shame that logistics becomes a barrier to a student who would otherwise be good academically or like with work ethic. Are you working at all?
I'm working in the summer, but when I'm in Alabama, it's really hard for me to work because I'm doing rotations, and when I'm not in rotations, I'm doing class or studying or doing work. So I don't really have the time to work, which kind of sucks because sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm kind of poor right now. But sometimes I'll DoorDash, like in Tuscaloosa, when I'm like, if I know I'm going somewhere, I'm like, I need money, so I'm gonna like just do some DoorDashes.
Yeah,
but
it works.
It does, yeah. But at home I work.
What do you do?
I work at a boutique.
Like cosmetology or?
No, like a clothing store.
Okay,
yeah.
I see.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
I work in retail.
The boutique word threw me
off.
That's what I was thinking too.
Fancy.
That's what I was. That sounds fancy.
Yeah, but not retail. Yeah, that's good.
There's a lot of, you know, most internship programs, so outside of like the undergrad, they'll recommend that you don't work during the internship, which isn't always feasible.
Another
for people.
logistical barrier.
Yeah. And actually an intern that I'll probably be working with in a couple of months was talking about, you know, what do you have in terms of recommendations for people who maybe need to work, or, you know, can they be part-time?
Yeah.
And, you know, that is an option sometimes for internships, that you could be part-time status. So then you could be working probably part-time, or if it is a virtual rotation where the hours are flexible versus, you know, an on-site where you have to be there, you know, 6 to 2:30 or 8 to 4 kind of thing. But that is another huge barrier is, you know, not people being able to.
Yeah, I wish I could work sometimes, at least like a few days a week, but it's like actually not possible. It really isn't. It's
unless gig work is an option like DoorDash, Grubhub, or I guess stuff like that. But you'd have to really.
Yeah, you got to like commit to it. That's why I only do it when I really need like extra money, like if I'm going somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never done it myself, but I always hear that there are certain hours of the day that are really good money.
Yeah.
Like if you can just do those
it's like peak pay. They give you extra money if it's busier. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe if you can sneak those hours in here and there. Man, that is just, it's unfortunate, but
And the thing too with like undergrad versus, you know, a traditional get your internship after is, you know, when you're an undergrad with being able to get like financial aid kinds of things and scholarships, that with the internship, sometimes they offer, you know, scholarships and financial aid, but it's not the same as being in like an undergrad full-time student, because a lot of the internships, they don't qualify you as a full-time student.
Yeah.
And so another issue of like getting in.
Not to beat up too much on the process, but that is, it's just, we've talked about it before. So with the coordinated program, you didn't have to actually apply to your internship, which is amazing. What advice would you share with future students who are going to apply to a coordinated program?
I would mainly say keep your grades up. That's the most important thing, especially in your nutrition classes. That's definitely really important. Like that's what the number one thing I'd say they look at. I also had to take an admission exam. I don't know if other coordinated programs have to do that, but that was kind of stressful because I didn't really know what to study with. So I guess just being like paying attention in class, like knowing what you're doing. And also like making connections with the professors in the nutrition department at whatever coordinated program you're applying to.
Always be networking.
Yeah.
A theme here at My Dietitian Journey.
Oh, yes.
You did some like extracurriculars too, I guess, maybe?
Yeah.
Or recommend some?
I mean, Student Dietetic Association, if your school has one, looks super great on an application. Volunteering, just getting service hours and stuff like that, just to make your application stand out. And I guess a piece of advice I would have is I was really worried about coordinated program being way too difficult for me, that I wouldn't be able to like balance everything. So I would just say most coordinated programs make your schedule's accommodating so that you can take classes and not be stressed out about having to go to rotations right after. So I would just say, if you're on the fence about applying to a coordinated program, just apply.
That's good.
Yeah.
And the thing with having experience is that's useful for obviously a lot of things, but building the connections with the faculty, like you mentioned, is going to be really helpful for getting like letters of recommendation.
Yeah.
So even if you're not in a coordinated program or you're just in your undergrad right now and going to do the internship or planning to do the internship after, you're still going to need letters of recommendation. The GPA is still going to matter. The experience is still going to matter. So all these things are relevant for any kind of rotation that you're going to go into or internship program.
All right. So just to dig into your internship a little more, for the clinical that you did, what site did you go to? Was it a hospital?
Yeah, it was a hospital in Tuscaloosa. It's called DCH. It's 583 beds. That's what I got from the internet.
That's a big hospital.
I don't know how right that is, though, because it's actually, the hospital is not that big. I don't know. I found that from the website, but I don't know how correct that is. But like I said, I did Tuesday, Thursdays from 8 to 4. It was like for 6 weeks, I think. I actually really liked it.
Was it like a big sprawling campus with multiple buildings or just
Not
one?
Really. It has a cancer center and an ER general hospital. I don't know. I really feel like 583 beds is a lot, right?
It is.
Yeah.
That is a lot. It is. That's a lot of beds. I've been to a hospital that was like 480 or 500 beds, Lehigh Valley Hospital, and it was enormous. And I don't know if you got to look at the food service component, but if you saw, servers rolling in and out with carts, like that's, kind of an indicator. I guess you could base, I don't know. You didn't do food service there. You didn't do
No, I didn't do it there, yeah.
So it was a clinical, so you wouldn't have. So what did you do? Did you work with dietitians?
Yeah, so there was actually, in the actual rotation, I went with 6 of the people in my group. So there were 7 of us that were on site at this hospital, but we individually got to work with a dietitian in the dietitian's office. There was like 10 dietitians that worked there.
That's a lot.
Like it.
Yeah. So we each got assigned to one. And then we worked with them. We did assessments. We saw patients. We did educations, follow-up, stuff like that. We charted. We learned how to chart on the computer. And we also had to do case studies. So we'd go see patients and we'd pick a patient to do a case study on, obviously anonymous, HIPAA. But we had to do a cardiovascular one, a GI case study, a renal case study, and then a final one, which is what we could do whatever we wanted.
So was that just sort of an assessment of the patient's condition and a recommendation?
Yeah, so it was just a nutrition assessment, and we'd have to write about their disease state and, figure out nutrition goals and interventions for them.
So you followed the full nutrition care process for that. So we actually briefly talked about this before, but the nutrition care process involves the nutrition assessment, the diagnosis, so like a PES statement, which is nutrition related, and then the monitoring, the intervention, so like it could be education, it could be like supplement based, and then the monitoring and evaluation, so looking at like what kind of goals and how you would follow up with that patient. So that's something you would see pretty standard in clinical rotations, is following that nutrition care process, but it'll also be in like private practice kinds of things where the nutrition care process is followed.
Yeah.
So you did some charting?
Yes.
And you were obviously have to go into their EMR to do
Yeah.
that. Was it Epic?
Do you
remember which one?
I don't remember.
Okay.
That sounds familiar though.
Yeah, Epic is one of the big ones. There's a couple that are like really big.
I think that was it, if I had to guess.
Any experience? Yeah. So like if you dig into the EMRs more and like you get into Epic, if your goal is to do clinical, that's probably one of the best things you can do is familiarize yourself with it. And then long-term care is going to be separate, and that's next semester.
That's actually my last semester. So I have one more semester, which is clinical, food service, community. And then the semester after that is research, long-term care. Yeah.
Okay. And were there any highlights for the clinical piece? Like what was your favorite part of it?
I liked my final case study a lot. I did it on chemotherapy-induced malnutrition, and I thought that was super interesting, and I really enjoyed working on that case study.
That's very niche in terms of like the way chemo impacts patients.
And I thought that's why I wanted to do it, because I saw a patient, and it was just super interesting how it was literally the chemotherapy that had caused it. So she like nonstop throwing up, stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So do oncology departments typically have a dedicated dietitian on staff for just that?
Yeah,
sort of
right?
thing?
Yeah, depending on the size and if it's like an outpatient center or not, but usually there's a dietitian that's might be there full-time or part-time depending on the client load. But there's actually a few dietitians that I know of that work in oncology, and it's specific to that. And a lot of times it's just trying to manage the symptoms of the chemotherapy.
Yeah.
So like malnutrition being a huge issue, which then contributes to like, malnutrition. When we talk about that, it's not just, extreme weight loss that can happen, but nutrition deficiencies.
Yeah.
So what supplements could be appropriate at what point, maybe is tube feeding recommended or things like that. So
Yeah.
there could be a lot going along with it. You had mentioned that you're doing the inpatient. You did the inpatient clinical at that DCH regional hospital, and then your second clinical is going to be at a different type of site.
So it's actually at the VA hospital in Tuscaloosa, which I'm also doing my food service rotation there next semester.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
A very different population than
Yeah.
Oh,
for
the
sure.
VA.
Yeah.
Yeah. That'd be way different. So have you done a food service?
Yes, I did. I actually just finished my food service a month ago. I stayed in Tuscaloosa for the month of May, and I drove every day to Birmingham from 7 to 3 for 3 weeks at Princeton Baptist Hospital in Birmingham, smaller hospital. Did my food service there, yeah.
And that was like inpatient dining.
Yeah, so I did a lot of stuff when I was there. Most of the stuff I did was just like kitchen work, like doing tray lines, putting like condiments on plates, like and supplements depending on their diet orders and stuff like that. Delivering trays to patient rooms we did, and then just like general food service operations.
Did you do any weird projects or any kind of like specific?
No, not really.
No.
It was general, like just a lot of kitchen work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if you'll get that for your second rotation.
Yeah,
with being more
I was
intensive.
kind of disappointed because I wanted to do more of like the management side. So I'm hoping that my next one is more.
Yeah, I'm surprised because usually I used to work in food service management. I had an intern like every time they did food service rotation, they're with me for like a week. And I guess because you're doing multiple, the objectives will be different.
Yeah, I think it'll be like food service 2 will be a little bit more like, I guess. Yeah, in depth. Yeah.
Yeah, because typically with like the food service rotations, that is a big piece of it. The kitchen work, observing, being a part of, what the flow looks like. But then, temperature checks. I mean, for me, it was also menu planning.
Yeah.
I was in a school food service operation.
That's cool.
But then like recipe testing
Yeah.
and then the admin side of things. So like working with, purchasing, inventory, the admin of like answering phone calls and things like that. But
I did some inventory, but nothing Nothing really like meal planning or anything. That sounds cool though. I wish I did that.
Yeah, I would assume probably for the next one you'll work more
Yeah,
closely
I'm
with-
hoping. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you'll end up. There is an element of being a liaison between the food service department and nursing and other departments, and having to like coordinate communication, too,
Right?
because that becomes a challenge. Nursing and dietetics sort of don't always clash well, or like not nursing, but the way care is being administered up on the floors versus how patients perceive food and what they should be eating. And you've dealt with that in the call center when you worked there.
Yeah.
There can be some tension. Usually you end up having to go up and talk to a patient.
Yeah.
Obviously, as a dietetic student, you'd have ample experience to explain it or articulate it even better than a manager would.
And it depends too. Like, a friend of mine is still currently a dietitian, but works as a nurse now. And the perspective she's told me has changed, because what you're doing as a nurse is obviously vastly different than as a dietitian, but also, what is priority in terms of like care. Sometimes it's not necessarily worrying that the patient didn't eat yet, but it's their blood pressure tanking and things like that. And so, being able to have that open line of communication is still going to be really key there too.
Yeah.
So, did you have any highlights or standouts from your food service rotation? Any key moments or like, interesting pieces?
I guess just when we did get to do like management stuff, like when we did inventory and we learned about purchasing and stuff like that, I would say that was the best part. But that was only like 1 or 2 days out of my rotation. But I enjoyed that part. I thought that was super interesting.
So did this place have like big storage rooms with tons of product? And it was about managing that. Did you go through any ordering or any kind of inventory management?
We were shown the process of how they do it, but we didn't like really get to do it ourselves. Yeah.
You're not missing much. they refer to that ordering process as like counting beans. You know, you've got a par. It's like 3 cases on the shelf. I need 4. I order 1.
Yeah.
Just doing that for hundreds of items.
Oh yeah.
That's all it really comes down to. There's a piece here for you to speak about working with kids. Hello, we have a script. What are you doing?
Sorry. So I was at a school district for my food service rotation, but mine was also combined with school nutrition education. So I did get to work with like
super cool
kids a lot more. And we talked about this on the podcast with Sophie, that I dressed up as a pea pod a banana.
That's amazing.
And handed out stickers because it was like National School Lunch Week. So anyone who had like a fruit or vegetable got
that
like
is
a
so
sticker.
fun.
So that was really fun. But I liked the perspective. It was very different than working in clinical.
Yeah.
I had been a food nutrition aide, so I was able to see kind of the hospital-based food service aspect of it. But being in a school system was a lot different because there was more of the menu planning and this, school nutrition menu cycle. And, so there's some stuff that overlapped, but, being able to like work one-on-one with like classrooms and the kids.
Yeah,
and
that
stuff
is so fun. I would have enjoyed that.
Maybe some other, I don't know, I guess you're kind of locked into it.
Yeah,
Maybe
I'm locked in.
Like yeah. So you're going to do your community rotation next, right?
Yeah, that's next for me when I go back to school.
And do you know where you're going? And
yeah, Jefferson County Department of Health.
We did
in
about
Birmingham.
Of course.
Yeah, but I really don't know what I'm going to be doing. I guess we'll find out. I tried to find information about what I'll be doing, but I really couldn't.
What was yours?
So I was at WIC in the nice part of Philly.
WIC.
And so,
which... Were you, what was it, North Philly?
Yeah, it's North Philly. Which the people were super nice down there, but maybe not the greatest area. But the thing with WIC, and my rotation was actually 4 weeks at WIC, which I've probably said to everyone that I've had in the practice that 4 weeks is a really long time at WIC. And even the staff there was like, what are you going to do for 4 weeks? Like, you're going to learn everything in 2 days.
Every day?
Yes.
Oh.
It was 160 hours.
So was it just repetitive?
Yes. So I had a couple of competencies, but they did. So when they got the individuals came in to get their WIC checks at certain times, they would also need to meet, like required to meet with the nutritionist. And they called them nutritionists because there was a dietitian there, but most of them were like had a bachelor's in nutrition or something like that. So they weren't all dietitians. And some people really enjoyed that, and some people wanted no parts of working with a nutritionist when they came in. They just wanted their WIC check. So there was that aspect where not everybody was coming back to actually have a session. So most of the time they'd be just kind of like hanging out, like the actual employees there. And then I did do an in-service for the staff on like trends in nutrition that they might come across. And I did a poster board about nutrition related problems. And then I had like an assignment where I had to, identify an issue. So I actually did it on the baby friendly, feeding initiative. So like with, like breastfeeding versus the emphasis on like formula in hospitals and what are considered like baby friendly hospitals where they emphasize breastfeeding, and don't just give somebody, like formula right away. So that was super interesting, but if it rained, nobody came. Like literally nobody came to the site.
That seems to be a sort of a theme with a lot of I don't want to call it elective healthcare. I guess it would be where you don't need to come in. So right now I'm at a pain management practice, and if it rains, there's a lot of no-shows, which is weird. Not a lot, but there's a few. And so you went to North Philly. Mm-hmm. It's sort of an impoverished area, somewhat like the level of poverty is higher there. There's more crime, and that's, in my opinion, that's important exposure.
Yeah,
it was definitely important exposure, and it was definitely something because you had a very diverse group of individuals that came through. There was individuals who were they had just recently moved here from another country. They were living with family, and they were getting WIC, but they were. English was not their first language, and there was like, I really just need assistance kind of thing. And then you see a lot of iron deficiency as a big thing, and then breastfeeding issues too. And so that was another huge thing that, that was a space that I wasn't as familiar with, but also with working with kids, some people came in with their kids. And so it was managing an appointment with giving education, but also having, a toddler going around and stuff. So, but then you'd also have people who came in with multiple children, and just a very, very broad look. And how you approach conversations, I think, was super important too, that not looking down on individuals, and that they're here because they need help and they're looking for assistance. And so to be demeaning or anything like that is, not.
But that was probably a more challenging piece of your internship as a whole.
Yes. I think how you came across the education piece was probably the biggest challenge, because from who I'd been working with before was a very different demographic, and how you spoke to different individuals was a lot different. So I think that was a big learning experience of like how people communicated in those different settings that was different than I was used to.
Yeah, I would make the case that one of the most valuable pieces of any learning experience, your internship or whatever it ends up being, is the part that really pushes your boundaries and challenges you definitely to think different and really puts you on your toes in terms of the way you go about things you've done 100 times, but now it's different because of these variables. And the more that you get that, especially from your internship while you're a student, and there's low pressure because it's not like it's your business, it's your livelihood. You're an intern. You can just kind of have the experience and learn and fail if it comes to it. The saying is fail early and often. So like the more uncomfortable conversations you have, the better you get it.
Definitely.
Being comfortable in them.
Yeah, that's I've said to Kristina a few times with like counseling sessions, is that it's better to just give it a practice now, and you're not going to be good at it. I wasn't good at it when I started, and I was lucky in the positions that I had when I finished my internship that I was able to have like some low stakes practice. Right. Versus someone just jumping right into the field as like a paid position, or, accepting insurance or self-paying clients, that there's a lot more pressure to do well and have a good appointment versus, the practice.
Yeah. Any kind of practice environment is just, it's so valuable. Just the walls are padded when you're not going to hurt anybody. You're not going it's easier to just get through that stuff when you're still learning. So you're currently in your elective rotation with Felicia, which is 200 hours. It's like 5 weeks.
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
And it's been with you the whole time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's going to continue after this, or is this toward the end? Or
Nope, she's got a couple more weeks left.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So. What would you say has been the most valuable, your favorite piece so far?
So when I was picking my elective rotation, I really wanted to do a private practice because we don't really get that experience within my program. So I've really enjoyed like doing stuff that I would never have done in like if I did my elective rotation somewhere else, like practicing counseling, like you mentioned before. That's not something I get to do very often. So I feel like I've just been gaining skills that I would have never got to experience otherwise.
And the thing with so just an overview of what I usually do with working with interns, social media. So Kristina's been writing and creating like graphics for social media, blog writing. Yeah. So there's a blog scheduled that'll be out that Kristina worked on, newsletter development, and then presentations. So we just did a recipe demo.
Yeah, super fun.
Yeah. And then we're going to do a presentation on the connection between nutrition and depression. So that'll be in July.
Yes.
And then the mock session. So one thing with having a virtual practice is it can be difficult to have interns, present during those appointments if they're virtual themselves. So unless they're, physically on site, it's a little harder to observe counseling sessions. So we've been doing mock sessions. So this is usually what I'll do is I'll set up, a case study based on a client with, the HIPAA stuff all modified and whatnot. But then doing a mock session. So taking on whatever that persona is for that client. And then the other thing too is Kristina got the opportunity to work with a health coach, and they're going to actually swap sessions. So Kristina did a practice session with the health coach, and then the next one this week you're going to be the receiving end, the coachee with
the client.
The client. And so it'll be a different perspective. Yeah. And then Kristina's going to do another session with that health coach. So it's a good way for them both to practice, but also seeing the different perspective and style of, coaching versus, medical nutrition therapy.
So do you have any inkling of desire to consider a private practice for yourself as a side hustle or anything?
Yeah, maybe one day. Like I said, I kind of want to do clinical first. I know like some people don't want to do clinical right out of college just because it's kind of the cliche. But I think that's what I'll probably end up doing once I graduate. And then, I don't know, maybe in the future.
One of the things too, Kristina, you had mentioned was I had been building a couple new assignments for interns this last working with you anyway. And so one of the things was having Kristina look at different private practices that are out there for dietitians and then like non-nutrition professionals. And one of the things you had brought up was about, that there was these larger practices with dietitians. And so it's not just a matter of you having to start your own practice, but you can also work in a private practice. Yeah. Yep. So that was just something else with looking at different opportunities.
To go to work with,
I think that'd be super cool. Yeah.
To work with a practice like virtually or?
Yeah, on site or virtually. So like, practices they'll hire, we were talking about this, hiring dietitians, but some of them are face-to-face, some of them are virtual. But some larger companies where they have like 30 or 40, like a fleet of dietitians.
A fleet, that's the technical term for multiple dietitians. It was a flock a few years ago. They changed it. There's dietitians on demand, right?
Yep.
They're like hiring dietitians now to be part of their fleet and to go see patients for them. I guess there's a virtual component to that too.
Yep. So it's 100% virtual. The new piece that they've just kind of unveiled was the virtual counseling. Mm-hmm. So it's like, hey, if you have been working on site, so at a long-term care facility and you're the need to, send clients to a dietitian that's outpatient, you can now be hired as one of our dietitians and see them virtually or, refer to someone within that network of dietitians on demand. So it's a great idea.
And you're doing some stuff right now. You have like a contract with, are we not allowed to talk about that?
We're allowed. I probably can't say like the name of everything.
Sure,
but next week I'm starting a contract with a company where I'll be there. It's a hospital system, but it's an outpatient focusing on bariatric surgery. So like pre or post surgery. I'm not exactly sure.
And it's virtual.
So I'm on site 2 days just because they requested if I could, and the rest is all virtual. So
that's awesome.
But they have if you sign up for their alerts, they have tons and tons of contracts that come out in all different states, some virtual, some on site, everything from like long-term care. This was one of the more recent ones that I saw that was more focused on outpatient, but a ton of long-term care. And usually it's anywhere from like a couple weeks to maybe a month. And if it's a travel position where you have to relocate, there's often funding there and bonuses and stuff.
Yeah.
Yep. So
just an interesting option in terms of
Yeah,
private practice.
definitely.
You can sort of be a freelance dietitian
Yeah.
and just pick the stuff up if you want. So do you have any words of advice for interns who are looking for a private practice? What is it? Was it rotation?
Yeah.
As their elective?
I guess I would just say manage your time wisely, especially if you're virtual. Like most days I'm virtual. So just making sure you stay on top of everything, taking breaks when needed. Just trying to have a schedule, stay organized, and on top of your assignments for sure. That's what I would say.
yeah, and it's the one thing that I do with working with interns is they all get set up on Google Drive, Google Keep. So Kristina's got like a schedule, task list for the day, what meeting dates and times we have. So we have a meeting pretty much every day unless you're on site, like a virtual check-in. Sometimes it's 15 minutes, sometimes it's an hour. But those are on Kristina's schedule, and then like different assignment-based stuff as to what she'll work on that might be related to competencies or things that we're doing. So we're working, Kristina's been working on the outline for the depression and nutrition connection presentation that she's going to be doing. So, but even though it's organized, it's still organization for Kristina.
Yeah.
Time management on her end too, because I'm not, sitting there and looking at her, the entire 8 hours of the day. And one thing I've said to Kristina too of interns is really coming prepared with questions and then also being open to feedback, because I know I give lots of feedback, and if you're in an internship, you're learning, and so being open to that.
Yeah, guys, she's brutal. It's crazy.
I probably am. At some point,
No.
I said to Kristina, I was like, I hope this is okay. Don't want me to just be highlighting all these things.
It's not brutal. I need feedback.
So you have your own setup at home when you're a virtual intern. Do you have any advice in terms of organizing your physical space when you're doing a virtual session like that?
I mean, I try not to sit in bed because that makes me want to fall asleep. So I guess just like if you don't have like a desk, just finding a table and a chair in your house, or like sitting outside. I sometimes sit outside and do work. Just an environment that you feel comfortable in.
Yeah, because that could be a challenge if you're not used to working from home.
Yeah, and I've never done that before. This is my first time working virtual, other than like when COVID happened in school, but that was different. Like actually doing work every day.
Oh, can you talk about that a little bit?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, what was your experience? So you were in college during the peak of COVID? Or?
Yeah, so it was my sophomore year. So March 2020, it was in Alabama. We got sent home for it was just spring break, and then they were like, "Oh, never mind, don't come back." Yeah.
So you were in Jersey doing classes
Well,
virtually?
we kind of knew that like we got sent, our spring break started like March 13th. So like that's the day that everyone was like going crazy.
Yeah.
So we kind of had a feeling we weren't gonna come back after spring break. So I went home, and then me and my mom had to book a flight so I could get all my stuff, because I left all my stuff there. So I had no clothes, so I had to book a flight, and then we drove back with all my stuff because my car was there too. So it was a mess. And then after that, I just did all my classes from home.
And so, March 13th was the day.
Yeah, like I'll never forget that day.
Yeah.
That was a Friday, wasn't it?
I think so, because that was the day spring break started. So I'm assuming that it was
funny,
a Friday.
That fell on the same week.
Friday the 13th. I just realized that.
Weird.
Because we went on spring break for Bucks too, and it was that Friday, and everyone's like, we'll be back. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, that's what everyone was saying.
Spring break.
I don't know about that.
Another week. 2 years later.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty much. It was my mom's birthday, and then we were at your house for like your parents' house for your house. You live here. This is our house. It was our last social event, and then all of a sudden, bam, the world shut down.
Yeah.
So you were just doing your classes as well. They, I guess, modified the classes to be virtual.
Yeah, that's how it worked. So like all my tests were online. Like like everything continued as normally, like online. I mean, not normally, but like same schedule, like same lectures, everything. Class times were mostly the same, just on Zoom.
At what point was it your second year, first year?
Second year. Yeah.
And you had to, it was 100% virtual from your house in Jersey.
Yeah.
I guess it was all like Zoom and stuff. It was just like high school would have been, right? Where they just
my brother was in
over.
his senior year of high school, and all his stuff was on Zoom.
That's
crazy.
rough.
Yeah. Wow.
He didn't even get a graduation. So
that's a shame.
Yeah.
I felt so
or prom.
bad for the some of the guys I work with at the firehouse. They were the 2020 class, and it's just such a shame. But
Yeah.
At least the world's getting back to normal now.
Yeah, thankfully.
Did you find with that immediate shift to virtual, because I had it from a perspective of an educator and not as a student. And so like, did you find that with that shift, like was your education kind of seamless, or did you find that there were like, issues with kind of the learning?
Honestly, it was easier. Like, no, I didn't have to wake up I had Monday, Wednesday, Fridays at 8 a.m. that semester. So that was nice, like not having to wake up early to do work every day. I felt like it was more relaxed, which like at that time I was still a nursing major. So I was still like I was in like anatomy 2, which was like in like a really hard math class. So I think it was just like, it felt more relaxed, but at the same time, I wanted to be back at school. Like I wasn't supposed to be home. So it sucked, but it's all okay now.
Do you feel that you still got value out of the education during that time? Like in terms of the material?
Honestly, not really.
Yeah. Okay. I had a feeling. I didn't want to just say probably sucked, but
Yeah, no, not really. Because it was like they would post lecture videos for most of my classes. So like it was just you watch on your own time. Like it just there wasn't no like professor-student connection whatsoever, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's a big thing with engagement and engaging online students, especially if it's pre-recorded lectures. Like how do you actually engage them if you don't have that interaction? That live interaction.
Yeah.
Did you find, because I assume then you were virtual for your fall semester?
Actually, no, I wasn't. In Alabama it was like I still went back to Alabama for junior year. Most of my classes were hybrid. Actually, my only class that was in person was my intro to nutrition class, which is like kind of funny. But yeah, other than that, like I was taking microbiology that semester. That was online. Mostly everything was online or hybrid.
Okay. Just curious because 2020, a lot of instructors, like I had been teaching online already, so I was comfortable with the flip.
Yeah.
But a lot of instructors were like learning how to do everything online at the same time of like, there's a global pandemic happening. Yeah. And so I think that there was a lot of, it's almost like completely understandable. And, from the instructor perspective, a lot of my students were just like, they were working when they didn't, kids were home. And so there was so much else to take into consideration, them needing to be in school live. They now had to work and take after the kids and whatnot. And so it's almost like I gave everybody it's almost like a pass, March 2020 to graduation. Cause you still want them to learn, get what they're paying for, but at the same time, it's just mentally chaotic too. So
I think a lot of the professors at Alabama though were like very accommodating. Like since some of my classes were in person that semester, like if you had to miss, like it wasn't a big deal. Like if you were feeling COVID symptoms, they were like, don't come, like do not come. So they did a good job about being accommodating, but it did change a lot. It really did. Yeah.
So you're going to have your master's at the end of this, or you're coordinating?
The timeline's kind of complicated. So I'm graduating with my bachelor's in December. I'll be finished with my coordinated program in May of 2023. And I'm getting my master's December 2023.
Oh, okay. So yeah, you'll have it end of 2023.
By the end of 2023, yeah.
Yeah.
Have you thought about when you might schedule to take the RD exam based on all that?
I am hoping the summer after I finish my coordinated program. So like I'll finish in May 2023. So hopefully that summer I'll take my exam. So
that would be before you finish your master's, because you'll still be in that window.
Yeah, so I can technically still take the exam.
So you want to take the exam before you actually finish your master's degree? Do you have any exposure to the exam at this point? What to study? Any kind of...
Not yet. I'm like kind of putting it off until at least like I graduate with my bachelor's, and then I feel like I can start really studying.
I don't blame you. I'm sure you got enough on your plate.
Yeah, I do.
It's a lot. I mean, the only thing I did during my internship, which again, my internship was after, and then I didn't finish my master's because I had grad credits during my internship, but I didn't finish my master's until a year after that.
Yeah. I'd like to like have a job and then like be working on my master's at the same time.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But all I did during my internship was like make note cards from like a study guide that I had just periodically, but it was more like a mindless kind of thing to fill the time, because you're doing all this, especially with what you're doing too. It's like you're doing all the things, you're learning at the same time, and you're, trying to just be a person. Yes. Maybe have a social life too. So it's a lot to manage that. If you don't really start studying until after your internship, that's fine. Just soak up all the knowledge during.
That's the plan. Yeah.
So now that the master's degree is a requisite of being an RD, and that's also sort of the bar for teaching nutrition at the college level.
Yes.
I wonder if at any point in the future they'll have a rotation for education, or at least have that as an option, like a nutrition education.
Oh, interesting. That'd be interesting.
There was a nutrition education component in my undergrad, and then it was also tied into my internship because we had a component that was school nutrition education. So I had to write 2 lesson plans for that rotation. So it was a component of one of the classes that I took to learn how to write like a learning objective and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I had, which was nice, also working at a nonprofit like a YMCA, I was able to practice writing lesson plans already and then have that a little bit more formalized in like the education. But that's not a part of every program that, with something like teaching opportunities, you go into it and they like sometimes will just hand you a textbook and a syllabus and tell you to go at it.
Yeah.
So.
I took a nutrition education class last semester, and it was like a group project based class. So we all like were in a group, and we picked a topic and like a target audience that we were presenting the education to. And it was like the whole semester we worked on the project.
That's
so
cool.
Yeah, it was a fun class.
I can see my nutrition education textbook that I kept from my undergrad over there. And it was really helpful because it was identifying your target audience and then tailoring your lesson to that target audience. And there was like small group, large group, individual kinds of stuff, and reading the demographic, like understanding the demographics.
That was like a really important aspect of it, was that it had to like, the education you were providing had to be like mine, for example, was sodium intake for older adults. So like we had to like cater the project to like the elderly. Yeah,
it's going to look a lot different than if
exactly.
you're talking to, nutrition students or even kids too.
Exactly.
So. I wonder if one day because where it's 2 clinical, 2 food, 1 community, 1 long-term care, 1 research, 1 elective, is that specific to her program, or is that sort of a general?
The way that Kristina's is split up might be more like coordinated programs, just in terms of the time frame and when like her food service is split in different section or different semesters. My food service, clinical, and community are the 3 components. So there are internship requirements that you have to meet and certain competencies from the CDR. So the way that that's designed can look a lot different, but there's certain
long-term
hours.
care is not a requirement. Research is not a requirement to satisfy the...
Long-term care is with my rotation. It was just lumped under clinical. So it was clinical, inpatient, outpatient.
Yeah, mine's separate.
And hers is separate.
Okay. So yours didn't draw a distinction between long-term care and clinical.
Yeah, it said long-term care, but it was a component under what they classified as just clinicals.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I wonder if one day they'll cut something out or maybe reduce something to include. In your opinion, as a dietitian who has had exposure to many of the elements of professionalism of dietetics, do you think it would make sense to include a nutrition education rotation in the internship process?
Yeah, I think for my food service management rotation was 13 weeks, which was pretty lengthy, but 2 weeks of that were school nutrition ed. I don't think that my food service was compromised in doing 2 weeks of school nutrition ed. So I think that I think clinical, absolutely, you need that time, because it's not just that you're learning clinical, you're learning medical nutrition therapy and disease states. And so that's a huge part of any job that you're going to work in. So that I think will definitely stay, if not maybe get longer. I think the outpatient part of that might build out a little bit. Like mine, I had 2 weeks outpatient at a eating disorder facility that was also a mental health facility too. It was behavioral health. So that I think will end up being a little bit more built out with rotations. But there are programs like the Complete Business Dietetic Internship that we've had
KBDI.
Lots of interns with so far, and I have a few coming up that they have the food service, the clinical, the community, but a big part of theirs is also the business rotation.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's built in. So I think down the line, the internship's going to change where there's going to be a little bit more focus on like private practice or entrepreneurship, and then probably more on the education piece of like, school nutrition ed or higher ed or something like that built in a little bit more too.
Yeah. I think that'd be cool.
Yeah, it would. I think it would be. I think it's almost going to become a necessity at some point.
Yeah. definitely.
And then, so you'll have your master's. That's the minimum requirement to teach at like the community college level, I guess, for nutrition.
Yeah. So community college, the university level, it depends on the program, but usually you can have just a master's, but usually you can't end up getting full professor. Usually then you need to be in a doctorate program or already have your PhD at that point. But master's requirement for like community college.
But you could be adjunct at a university with the master's?
Yeah. So the positions that I had seen more recently were you can have a master's, they preferred PhD. But if you were applying for like a 10-year position, you needed to have a PhD or be in progress to get one.
So as a possible career option, have you considered higher education, teaching nutrition?
I mean, I think maybe. I've never really thought about it, actually. I think I don't really want to go and get my PhD as of now.
Right.
But, you never know.
Well,
I'm open to
master's,
anything. Yeah.
Yeah, you could still teach.
Yeah.
Like she teaches at community college.
Yeah, like that's super cool. Maybe one day.
Yeah, what's interesting to me about dietetics as a career is that it's surprising that you guys have a lot of options for like a side gig.
There's a lot of options. Yeah.
Between the short-term contract stuff that you've picked up, one of those, just starting a private practice, whether or not you accept insurance, being able to pick up an online class in a university. This is stuff that I don't know if it's a focus during undergrad or during the internship or not, but there's a lot of opportunity to just start your little side hustle and just earn extra income or expose yourself to more avenues of income generation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And there's so many, the thing that's really great about dietetics is there are so many avenues for career paths. Yeah. And, I think a lot of times which is where that kind of issue comes in of only focusing it on clinical, but there's opportunities like you're going to be at a VA hospital, which I think is a great opportunity too. But working with the VA, or there's dietitians that are in the military that work also as a dietitian. And then there's opportunities for like contracts with large corporations or working as a dual dietitian and food service manager combined. Or then there's also the opportunity of, teaching, and there's so many opportunities that you can go with that it's, a great
Have
field.
you had a business class?
No, actually. Never.
Do you have any consideration for?
I wish I could. I just don't really I wish I could fit a business class in my schedule, but I'm already behind. So I'm like,
yeah, because of starting as a nurse.
Yeah.
So were any of the nursing classes or nursing material, do you feel any of that was applicable to?
Actually, a lot of the prerequisites for nursing, like anatomy 1 and 2, organic chemistry, chemistry 1, microbiology, they were all classes I had to take for nutrition.
Oh, so a lot of it just transferred over anyway.
Yeah, a lot of it did.
What did you take that wasn't directly applicable to the
Well, I didn't
program?
mention this, but I actually applied to all my schools as a political science major.
Oh, that's very different. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was just taking random classes, electives that I need, because it was a Bachelor of Arts. So it was a lot of I had to take an art class and just stuff that I didn't need to take for nutrition. So it was a lot of elective classes that were just not relevant. And now they just sit on my transcript with no application to my actual degree.
I'm in the same boat, and I'm sure a lot of people are as well. That's what happens when you're not sure what you want to do. That's not a big deal.
Yeah.
So you have an interest in politics?
I kind of wanted to be
the president?
I had a dream of being a political journalist.
Oh, okay.
When I was, but I always in the back, I know I said I always wanted to do healthcare, which is true. At first I was too scared to do it. So I was let me just apply to all my schools as political science because I'm interested in that. And then I just was not into it. And then you can imagine in Alabama how political science classes are.
I would assume it's very one-dimensional in terms of...
Yeah, it's just a lot. But then I was okay, I just want to do something I actually like, healthcare, which I had always had in the back of my mind. So I just switched to nursing and then eventually nutrition.
Very cool.
Yeah.
That's funny though, because when I was in high school, I was I'm going to be a judge. That was what I wanted to be. And then I was I want to be a lawyer. Didn't really know much about it.
I thought about going to law school too, but I was there's no way.
I did mock trial and I hated it. I took everything about it. And I was this is not mine.
Yeah,
my pathway. So
We have never talked about that. I have some questions now.
I don't know why. I think because it was like the glorified, like being a judge and like,
You look a little bit like a judge right now.
I probably do with my, black sweater
It's
on.
like a robe.
But it's funny because I think if I hadn't gone into nursing or nutrition, I think teaching was the thing that I was probably most drawn to, but like K to 12, like kids.
Which is ironic because that's the opposite of who you teach now.
I know.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
It's funny because I always said, like, when I used to work at the Y, at nonprofit community center, I loved working with kids. I would do like school age care, like after school program nutrition lessons. And I worked with like little kids in childcare where I'd show them like what different fruits and vegetables were. Or I worked with a couple of other childcare centers when I was a retail dietitian in a supermarket, and I have all of these kids nutrition books because of that, because I would read them a story and then they would try a healthy recipe or like try an apple for the first time. And so I don't know, I very much love the vibe with kids. It's
Me too.
very different than adults though.
Yeah.
Well, if you ever have a late career change later in life, maybe you'll go back to law school and become a judge one day. Who knows?
Maybe healthcare law I think is a big area. There's like one dietitian that I know that also has a law degree. I don't even remember her name.
I actually have heard of that before. Like someone that was in CP was actually went and did that. Like she became a dietitian and became a lawyer.
So there's a crossover between law and dietetics
Apparently.
too. Yeah.
Can be anywhere.
Well, she wanted to
Something
do
else.
like community nutrition, like laws, like policy making and stuff like that. So
That's what I thought of when you said political science. My mind went to like advocacy and that kind of aspect of dietetics. So, which is a much needed field.
Yeah.
Something else that's probably underserved, I would assume, given that there's so much needed to really get into that as a dietitian and someone who.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of work.
Maybe later. Yeah. Any closing thoughts, words of advice for students, interns?
Yeah, I would just say from my experience, I going into college was like a scared little girl, like being scared of what was going to happen, like how hard classes were going to be, not thinking that I would not be able to handle it. Just go for it. Do something that you actually enjoy doing. It's worth it.
Be bold.
Yeah.
Jump in head first. Throw your inhibitions to the wind. More
Exactly.
Cliches. Yes. What do you think?
And always be networking.
Yeah.
Yeah. Always network.
College is the most important time to do that. Yes. You're meeting people who are going to be the next wave of professionals. The more people you get to know, the more people you can stay in touch with, the more connections you have. Everyone's going to go get their degree, get a job somewhere. Now you know X, Y, and Z person at this or that company. And it sounds bad if you think about it on the surface level. It's like, oh, it's not what you know, it's who you know. But if you consider the way things work in the business world, if you have a connection with someone, a warm introduction, people who can help you meet other people, it makes all the difference. Cold calling is like the worst version of like sales you can do. If people don't know you, they don't care about you. So if people know you, immediately you're someone in their brain that is, of significance. It makes a big difference.
Yeah,
I know
absolutely.
it's a joke for us here, but like
But it's very true.
it's so important.
Yeah.
The only other thing that I would say is just a word of advice, because we've talked about, internship programs and what, people have learned and students have learned and tips and stuff like that. The only other thing I would say is just, even if it's a rotation that you're not loving, you could still gain something from it, whether it's
that's so true.
related to nutrition or whether it's communication skills. Like you can always learn something from it, and to take it as a learning experience, because you never know down the line, maybe that's a connection that you'll end up having, or you'll cross paths because the field is oh so small. And I've learned that just recently with the contract that I am going into next week. And so just, keep an open mind with it, and that even if someone is at the same place, they are going to have a different perspective and opportunity and learning experience than you.
Words of wisdom. So that's going to do it for us right here at the My Dietitian Journey podcast. Thank you, Kristina.
Of course.
Yeah,
Thank you
for joining us.
guys.
It's been great.
Yeah.
And that's going to do it for us. Thanks so much.